Hello, I'm Kyle,
I'm Stephanie.
and we are going over chapters 32 and 33 of Genesis. Just to kind of recap of where we're at, Jacob has just spent 20 years in Haran with Laban, and he has gained 11 sons, 4 wives, and much livestock. He just concluded with a sour encounter with Laban where they made a covenant that they're never going to cross paths again. Laban had to say goodbye to his grandchildren and his children. And now in chapter 32, Jacob is preparing for one of the biggest encounters of his life, aside from with God. He's preparing for an encounter with his estranged brother Esau. And the last time they met, Esau wanted to kill him. Why did he want to kill him? He wanted to kill him because Jacob had stolen his birthright, he'd stolen his blessing, basically everything that Esau was ever hoping for in his life. It just left him empty-handed. And really this is something we see throughout Jacob's entire life, is that whenever Jacob was going to receive a blessing, other people were left with a limp. Other people were left with less, while Jacob was left with more. And I think Jacob kind of had a little bit of shame about this. He knew what he did wrong, because this was a result of him relying on himself. And so what he does is he starts orchestrating this kind of a scheme to send droves of female and male donkeys and sheep and goats and oxen and camels and male and female slaves, all kinds of stuff, just a whole bunch of riches to soften the blow with Esau. And when his servants come back, what they don't say is, oh, Esau's super happy with this, yeah, come meet him. He says, Esau's coming with 400 men to meet with you. And so Jacob is sure at this point. He's like, he's coming to kill me, I'm going to die. And so he separates his camp into 2 camps. And what he's doing here is he's really just giving himself a 50-50 shot at survival. If Esau comes and attacks one of the camps, the other one can escape. And then we see Jacob do something that we all should do when we're in a situation like this. He stops and he prays. And what he does in this prayer is he says to God, he says, God, you've promised me that you're going to make me a land of many nations, and many nations are going to be blessed through me, that you're going to be with me through everything, and you're going to keep me safe. He holds God accountable to his promises. And then, while he's next to the ford of Jabbok, he sends his family across stream. This is after he continues to send 3 more droves of riches to Esau. Even after this prayer, where he acknowledges that God promised all these things, he still relies on his riches instead of God's promises. He sends droves and droves and droves, and then he sends his family across the stream, and he's left alone with just him and his thoughts. And really, I think of this as Jacob's moment of rock bottom. He's out of tricks, he's out of schemes, and it's just him and his thoughts. And what his thoughts are telling him is that he's about to die. And then, right there in the flames at rock bottom, God comes and enters into a wrestling match with him. And it's funny because even in this state of rock bottom, Jacob is still fighting so hard, his will is so strong, that he starts to overpower God in this wrestling match. So God has to reach out and strike him in the hip and dislocate his hip. Very painful thing. And really the spiritual implication of this is that God is breaking Jacob's will. Something that really needs to happen to Jacob, so that he can finally learn how to rely on God instead of himself. And that's exactly what we see. And Jacob, instead of continuing to try to stand on his own 2 feet, he clings on to God for dear life and says, I will not let go of you until you bless me. And that's the exact lesson that God was trying to teach Jacob. And he got the lesson. Because he got the lesson, God gave him a new identity. And his name was changed from Jacob, which means heel grabber or deceiver, to Israel, which means that I have wrestled with God and with man, and I have overcome. I've prospered. At that, give it over to Stephanie.
So as we get into chapter 33, that's where we see the change in Jacob. We see that his will has been broken and he is finally submitting to God's will. So he's preparing to meet his brother Esau, and he is lining up all of his wives, his children, his servants. And in the past, you would have seen Jacob manipulate, run, do anything but actually face what is happening. And instead, he is trusting in God's will. He is now clinging to God instead of himself and his ways and what he thinks is right. So he steps in front of his family and his servants, and he bows to Esau 7 times. And it's just he's showing this posture of humility and trust in the Lord, and just, I'm out of tricks. It's time to just trust what God has for me. And the amazing thing that happens here is that Esau runs to him, and they embrace and they weep, and they have this beautiful moment of reconciliation. And I think what this really shows is how God is working in ways all around us that we do not see. Jacob was so afraid of what Esau was going to do. He was only thinking about all the things that he has done, the way he would have handled this situation, all of these things. And what he is forgetting is that the Lord works all around us, in front of us, behind us, and in situations all over. And at the same time that God was working on Jacob, trying to get him to understand, like, you don't need to do anything, I've got this, he also was working on Esau's heart and softening his heart and making him open to that reconciliation. And I think that this chapter is just such a good reminder for all of us that a lot of the time when we are in our own will, it is nothing but a mess. And we are going to think things are going to go 100 times worse than they actually do. So when we try to control and, put our will into situations, as you see with Jacob all throughout his story, every time he tries to manage a situation, it ends up not going well for him. That if we can find the humility to put aside our will and trust in God, he's going to make sure that we're okay, and he's going to be working in ways that we're not seeing. And I just really love that. And I think it's such a good reminder. And I think it's really important to see that. And I think it's, you see examples of that, I think, all throughout the Bible, that when we get out of our own way and we let God, things go a lot better for us. So that's what I have for 33.
God bless you guys, and thank you so much for listening.